First, let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I want to start with roll call. Chief?
Brandon Pasquale, Chief of Police.
Trevor Bob, Township Engineer.
Tim Sullivan, Director of Engineering Services.
Dave Chris, Director of Finance.
Jeff Wintermont, Assistant Manager.
Bob Hart, Township Manager.
Sean Kilkenny, Township Solicitor.
Supervisor Dennis DeSanto.
Supervisor Kevin McDevitt.
Joe Gavanis, Vice Chairman.
Ashley DePiero, Chairwoman. Okay, thank you. I'd like to say that we announced that there is now a met for executive session to discuss matters of personnel and litigation. I'd like to make a motion to approve the meeting minutes for September 28, 2021. Do I have a second on that motion?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, seconded by Supervisor McDevitt. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Citizens to be heard. Go ahead.
Madam Chairwoman, I want to thank both the Board of Supervisors, Township Manager Hart, Solicitor Kilkenny, for the massive amount of time and effort that was put into revitalizing our Human Relations Commission. In little more than 100 days, you amended an ordinance that hadn't been addressed in almost a decade. You increased the size of the commission from 4 to 7, and you give us the tools and the support to say to both the county and to the Commonwealth that East Norriton respects and values every individual who calls our township their home. 2 weeks ago, we were honored to have Judge Alfarano swear in our existing commissioners. On November 8th, the 4 newly appointed commissioners, 2 of which are here right now, one is on his way, will be sworn in by the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission. Over the next 6 months, all of our members will receive invaluable training from, right now, the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission, the Anti-Defamation League, the Montgomery County Asian American and Pacific Islanders Community Center, and the U.S. Department of Justice from the Community Relations Division. We will be designing and implementing educational and outreach programs that focus on inclusion, equity, fair play, and good citizenship, and we'll be bringing those programs to our schools, to our senior living facilities, and of course to the general and greater community. East Norriton Human Relations Commission may be 10 years old, but the best part of it starts tonight. Thank you.
Any other citizens to be heard? Okay, moving on. Since there's no old business, we'll come right into new business. Starting with Ordinance 593, increase the number of members of the Human Relations Commission from 4 to 7. I'd like to call on the Township Manager, Mr. Robert Hart, to review this ordinance, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I really don't have a lot to add after Mr. Ben gave his rendition of really where we're at going forward. Just as a little background, when East Norriton formed their HRC and the founding chairman was Mr. Ben, it really set the example for HRCs all over, and I'll say all over the Commonwealth, on how to really get involved and do some really valuable efforts. Education, huge part of it, because and I know Mr. Ben looked at this from the very beginning as if we educate, we never get to the back end of issues and having to mediate those problems. So the education was such a key part of East Norriton's HRC to begin with. And I know we've had a little bit of a lull in the HRC over the last couple of years. Mr. Ben, as you know, at the meeting graciously accepted the request to come back and try to revitalize a board and an effort that is really meaningful and necessary in our society today. So after a lot of discussion with Mr. Ben, having it expanded would give us more opportunities and just more bodies, more people, more minds, more outlooks, more perspectives to do really good things here. So before you tonight is just action to adopt this ordinance from 4, to change it to 4 to 7 members. And then after you vote on that, if Mr. Ben may want to come up and introduce and name the entire board. So, cool.
All right, thank you, Mr. Matt. Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to increase the number of members of the Accumulation Commission from 4 to 7. Can you second that motion?
I'll second.
Okay, seconded by Supervisor DeSanto. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Ben, did you want to come up and introduce?
First of all, I'll say it's so nice to hear the words Mr. Ben is something other than adult information. It is a very, very nice feel. I never had adult information, but it's nice to hear the positive sense. Madam Chairwoman, Board of Supervisors, Manager Hart, I would like to present most of the new board that will serve as commissioners on the East North and Human Relations Commission. I'd like to start and ask them to stand up for a second. First is Darbush, Danny Ivanoff. Next, returning for some more years, why, I don't know, is Deborah Killian York. One of our members, Ken Hubert, is not here tonight. Another one of our members is in California, visiting his daughter tonight, Gary Murphy. We also have Patricia Patty Mark. And bringing up the rear is Melissa Rodano. I will tell you that over the last 100 days, the three of us, myself, Deborah, and Ken, put a lot of time and effort into picking the right people, and I bet you we did just that. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for volunteering.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Madam Chair, this may be a good opportunity, especially for our website moving forward. If the board stands up behind and we bring
Oh, yeah, that'd be
our
great.
members, our newer members out front, and we can take some pictures and as part of our promotion and education purposes.
That's what happened.
Everyone.
Just smile under, under mask.
Mask or no mask?
Want to slide down?
Someone with gynecologist.
Let's do one with the mask and one without. That way we
One with, one without?
All right, without.
Put my glasses on, sorry.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. All right, moving on to ordinance 594, amending part 1 of the administrative legislation, chapter 10. Fire Department, I'd like to call on the Township Manager, Mr. Hart, to review this ordinance, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If you recall, in mid-2020, the board amended our fire ordinance to allow, in the case of a situation where we needed to appoint some type of officers or a chief, if that need arose, in a variety of circumstances that could have possibly come up, the township needed to have an ordinance that power to do that. Not that the township is interested in doing it at any particular time, but it could arise that we would need to do that. That being said, it was done quickly in 2020. Before you tonight is really just a clarification. We cleaned it up more, took some time, wrote it out, but it all it does is gives the Board of Supervisors, if there's ever a need to appoint officers of the fire company, if, God forbid, volunteerism is not as vibrant as it could be, that it gives the board the power to appoint officers, township officers, and they would be have that rank in the fire service of East Norton Township. So that's really all that's in front of you tonight. It's a cleaned up version of what happened when we passed a year or so ago. Any questions, please?
Any questions from the board?
Aye. Not really a question, just a point of clarification. Mr. Hart, just for the throngs of people who are watching this
Yes.
right now, this is not the Board of Supervisors coup to take over the fire department, right?
It
I'm
is,
not even being facetious, but the last time this came up on an agenda, it caused a huge problem. This is not our move to take over the fire department, correct?
correct.
Thank
In fact, with the ordinance the way it is, if you did do anything, you still have the power. This just cleans it up. I understand how if someone has a certain perspective or an agenda, things could be taken out of context. This has nothing to do with it. This gives the board just power. It includes that power along with many other powers that they already have. If the need arises, that's really, it's no more than that.
Thank you.
It's like a safety precaution as well.
Yeah. It's actually prudent, sound management and governance.
Yeah. All right, thank you. I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 594. Do I have a second on that motion?
I'll second.
Okay, seconded by Supervisor DeSanto. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. On authorization of the sale of used public works equipment. I'd like to call on Township Manager again for you to decide, please.
I think, Mr. Chris, do you have this information?
Not for the truck.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Thomas. I usually don't do these particular sales, but I'm very grateful Ms. Thomas is here. Before you was an advertisement for the sale of a Mack dump truck. It's a 1997 Mack tandem dump with 11-foot plow and salt spreader. It is, we're asking to sell on, authorization to sell on municipal bid. We have purchased and continue to purchase and upgrade our equipment. Again, we've gotten our use out of this in 1997, and it's time to rotate our fleet. So that's really what it is before you tonight.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board?
No, I'd just like to comment that I've seen the truck and it's in pristine condition. If anybody wants to buy it, it's old, but it's still got a lot of life in it.
Okay.
That was a joke, sorry.
Any other jokes or comments?
I'm fresh out, sorry, Madam Chair.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to approve the authorization of the sale of the use of public works equipment. Do I have a second on that motion?
I'll second.
Okay, seconded by Supervisor Devanis. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. All right, moving on to authorization of the sale of office equipment. I'd like to call on Finance Director, Mr. Chris, to review this item, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. The Township staff is asking for the board's permission to advertise for sale on municipal bid an IBM 6400 line matrix printer. Now, this printer was not quite as old as 97, but it was part of the Township's IBM computer system that was installed in the early 2000s, and the use was discontinued in 2013. The printer was used sporadically for a couple of years after that, hasn't been put in use since 2016. So we're asking for permission to advertise for sale. We're hoping there's someone out there that might need such a printer, probably for spare parts.
Any questions or comments from the board?
I got nothing.
All right, I'd like to make a motion to approve the authorization of the sale of office equipment. Do I have a second on that motion?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, seconded by Supervisor McDevitt. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to escrow release number 3, Bradbury Point. I'd like to call the Director of Engineering, Mr. James Sullivan, to review this item, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. For consideration this evening is escrow release number 3 for Bradbury Point located at 2311 Old Archer Road. Based on recent inspection, all items in the request have been completed to the satisfaction of the Township Engineer's Office. It is therefore recommended the Board of Supervisors authorize escrow release number 3 for the Bradbury Point development in the amount of $39,162.02.
Any questions from the board? Okay. I'd like to make a motion to approve escrow release number 3 for Bradbury Point. Do I have a second on that motion?
I'll second.
Yes, seconded by Supervisor DeSanto. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to escrow release number 4, Bradbury Point. I'd like to call on Director of Engineering, Mr. James Sullivan, again to review this item, please.
If I can add, if you heard the phrase deja vu, that applies here. Mr. Sullivan?
I'm getting that feeling. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Also, for consideration is escrow release number 4 for Bradbury Point. This escrow release is for $31,210.55. It is recommended that the Board of Supervisors also authorize this release for the same reason as stated for escrow release number 3.
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Any questions or comments from the board? Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to approve escrow release number 4, Bradbury Point. Do we have a second on that motion?
I'll second.
Okay, seconded by Supervisor Canales. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to escrow release number 5, Bradbury Point. I'd like to call on Director of Engineering Services again, Mr. Sullivan, to review this item, please.
Thank you again. This is escrow release number 5. For some reason, they wanted to do them all separately instead of combining them in one large one.
Okay,
So we'll do this again. For all the reasons stated before, this escrow release is in position for the board to authorize release in the amount of $32,412.44.
Any questions or comments from the board?
What exactly is Bradbury Point again?
Gospel Highway.
Council Highway 40 County.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve escrow release number 5, Bradbury Point. Do I have a second on that motion?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, seconded by Supervisor McDevitt. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to escrow release number 15355 West Germantown Llc. I'd like to call on Director of Engineering, Mr. Sullivan, again to review this item, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll have to go through the whole spiel this time. This is for your consideration this evening is escrow release number 1 for 53-55 West Germantown Llc, also known as the Amazon Fulfillment Center. Based on recent inspection conducted by the Township Engineer's Office, all items have been completed satisfactorily. It is therefore recommended you authorize release number 1 for Amazon 53-55 West Germantown Llc in the amount of $1,844,673.50.
Any questions or comments from the board? I'd like to make a motion to approve escrow release number 15355 West Germantown Llc. Do we have a second on that motion?
I'll second.
Seconded by Supervisor DeSanto. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to authorization to re-advertise the 2021 Liquid Fuels Road Program. I'd like to call on the Director of Engineering, Mr. Sullivan, again to review this item, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is an unfortunate circumstance. We had a contractor for the 2021 road program. However, there was a minor problem with our advertising. We did not meet second-class township code advertising requirements. We therefore must go out and re-advertise for this project again, which we'll do almost immediately.
Okay, any questions or comments from the board? I'd like to make a motion to authorize the re-advertisement of 2021 Liquid Fuels Road Program. Do you have a second on that motion?
I will second that motion.
Okay, seconded by Supervisor Germanis. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to 8 East Germantown Llc. I'd like to call the Township Solicitor, Mr. Sean Kilkenny, to review this item, please.
Thank you very much, Chair McCure. The board has before them a assessment appeal stipulation that has already been signed off and actually negotiated by the Norristown Area School District. This was for what people may know as the AT&T property along Germantown Pike. And actually, when the school district went ahead and appealed this, the assessment was increased, so the township will get a slight increase of about $458.34 into its coffers because of this settlement. For the township to go ahead and actively litigate this themselves, that's not our recommendation. You'd have to hire a appraiser, and it seems like this is a fair settlement and a decent result for East Orange Township. So if the board doesn't have any questions, I would suggest the board just make a motion to approve this assessment appeal stipulation.
Any questions from the board? Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve the assessment appeal stipulation. Do I have a second on that motion?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, second by Supervisor McDevitt. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, our second one this evening relates to another assessment appeal stipulation, again, which has been signed off by the school board because they filed the what's called a reverse assessment appeal. They went ahead and the school district used their ability as a part to do so for 2101 New Hope Street. This is a much bigger parcel. It consists of a little over 5 acres, containing a nursing home owned by East Norton owner right on New Hope Street. It is known as the Brandywine Living Center and contains over 80,000 square feet of buildings. So what happened with the settlement for this property on October 20th, the Board of Assessment actually reduced the assessment to its current amount of $5,839,050, of which equates to a fair market value of $12,450,000. The Norristown Area School District's appraiser initially believed the property was undervalued, so Norristown Area School District appealed that to the Court of Common Pleas, and then there was a compromise struck. After reviewing the case further and considering the decreasing ratio, Norristown School District no longer believes that an increase in assessment is appropriate and has agreed to leave the 2021 assessed value at $5,839,000. After reviewing this case, the settlement terms will result in no refund being issued to the township. However, tax revenue on the property for tax year will be reduced by a little over $746. So that concludes the settlement for this. Again, if the township disagreed with this, we would have to hire our own appraiser, hire us to go ahead and litigate this at the Board of Assessment. So we recommend that we follow the school district's lead and approve this stipulation to settle.
Any questions or comments from the board? I'd like to make a motion to approve the proposed settlement stipulation. Do I have a second on that motion?
I'll second.
Second by Supervisor DeSanto. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to the Township preliminary 2022 budget presentation. I'd like to call on Finance Director Mr. Christie to review the initial 2022 budget, please.
Thank you, Chairwoman Shapiro. In front of you tonight, we're proud to present the initial 2022 proposed budget for East Norriton Township. And so the budget process itself, most of you have been through this before, so just be kind of a recap of what we do each year. In October board meeting, we always have the initial budget presentation that's made before the board. We get authorization to advertise that that budget so that we can follow the public advertising requirements. Then over the next few weeks, we'll have different meetings with department directors, with individual supervisors, as we continue working on the budget to meet our budget goals. Then at the board meeting on November 16th, we'll present a second version of the budget. And we'll continue to have department meetings and individual supervisor meetings after that. And then hopefully come December 14th, at the last board meeting of the year, we'll present the final 2022 budget to the board for adoption. And as we always do, before we start talking about 2022, we like to go back and talk a little bit about 2021. We know there's still a couple months left in the year, but 2021, there's a lot that was done in 2021. A lot of the focus was on recreation facilities, upgrades. If you recall, in 2021, there was the new ADA accessible playground equipment that was installed at Standard Street Park, and of course, all the windscreen improvements that were done on the ball fields and the tennis/pickleball courts. Lewis Mack Watson Park had a complete overhaul, brand new basketball courts, backboards, rims, and a general revamping of that entire park. And just last month, the board approved new playground equipment for Old Arch Road Park as well. Very exciting in that in 2021, the township was able to get started back on special events. Hopefully everybody had a chance to visit us on Community Day in September. We were finally able to have summer camp this year as well. Trunk or treat happened this past weekend, and currently plans are underway for the end-of-year holiday parade and tree lighting ceremony as well. Public Works was also included in highlights. We certainly had a new trash truck that was purchased in order to help streamline those collections, save some money. And then the township also was very successful in having grant awards for the year, so that we could spend the state and federal money on doing a lot of these types of improvements. And of course, the radar detection program for the multiple intersections along Germantown Pike were completed in 2021 as well. It doesn't end there. There was a lot of work done for the Hurricane Ida and the flooding cleanup. Public Works did an amazing job cleaning up after all those storms, aiding our residents during that time as well. The police department hired new officers this year. They welcomed officers McLean, Nicholson, and Zabriskie. And I think Officer Peaches was this year as well. So we actually had 4 new officers. As you could guess from Jim's reports on the escrow releases, construction was active in 2021 for the township with the Amazon Fulfillment Center, the Walnut Hill office building, and of course the Bradbury Point Townhouse development. And spoiler alert, we didn't have any increase in 2021, and we're not anticipating any tax increase in 2022 as well. So those are the highlights for 2021. And if you just bear with me for another couple minutes, several years ago when we started the formal budgeting process, one of the things we did was establish different 4 guiding principles that all departments agreed to follow during the budgeting process. First, stewardship. Everybody agreed to strive to be good stewards of the township's resources, financial resources and other, ensuring that we all work together to preserve and enhance, where we work on ways to try to limit the increases and come up with strategies to enact long-term savings to help keep these costs down. And 2021 and 2022 is absolutely no different, where we continue to work on these areas. And when we talk about impacts to expenses in our 2022 budget, insurance costs. As you can see, our insurance costs across the board are increasing. Whether it's property and liability insurance, workers' comp, health, fire insurance, long-term disability, all of it is going up. Now, some of it has to do with our health, has to do with the fact that we've got different folks who are on our plan now that may not have been before. They changed coverage from single to health. But regardless of that, all of these insurance expenses have increased over 2021. So this insurance cost control, while it's something we tackle every year, this is going to be a major discussion in 2022, so we can start figuring out how we can cut these cost increases and start reducing them over the years. The other major impact I mentioned was pensions. They are always a constant strain on our budgets. Our non-uniform pension plan is one area where we, staff, and the board is actually taking steps to manage our long-term expenses. You can see by the chart here, are constantly increasing expenses, but in 2022, they're actually set to go down a little bit. Not a lot, $10,000, but it's in the right direction. And the reason for that is those pension changes that the board enacted late last year. So we're already seeing minor savings there, and we're absolutely anticipating long-term savings with those changes that you put in place. Our police pension obligation is the exact same thing. The only difference here is these expenses are dictated by the state, the benefits, so we don't have a lot of control at the local level. But our job will be to continue working closely with our financial advisors to make sure the monies are invested wisely and are generating the appropriate investment return. That's what will help us save money, or at least not reduce the amount of increase over the years for these expenses. So those are our major revenue assumptions and impact, our major expense assumptions and impact. We also have a lot of requests from departments for capital improvements in 2022. This is the one area we'll be talking a lot about over the next month and a half as we start whittling things down to get to our final budget numbers. But there's been requests for road paving and other road improvements in 2022, continuing our LED streetlight replacement program, 88 curbs and sidewalks in different places of the township. We talked about actually the truck replacement already. We're selling one, so of course we need to get a replacement there. There's been improvements requested for the public works buildings. We've held off purchasing computer systems over the last year or so, so we're in a situation where we really need to replace the ones that we've got. Emergency management equipment, police garage improvements, stormwater and drainage improvements, recreation facility improvements. The good news is I mentioned earlier that we had a lot of successes with grants. So some of these projects can be funded by grant monies by the state and federal government, and we'll only be responsible for our matching share, typically around 15%. So here we are back at the beginning. Our 2022 proposed budget, $16,667,771. And as far as our budget goals are concerned, how did we do? Well, we're proposing no tax increase for 2022. In some cases, we are using fund balance to balance the budget, but we're keeping that as small as possible. And as we do our work the next month and a half, we're going to work on reducing that even more so. We've got a lot of infrastructure improvements that are scheduled to take place. And I think that accommodates the good stewards part and also enhancing the East Norton Township for its residents and visitors. So I think we pretty well nailed it if we can keep reducing some of these expenses. So I'd be glad to answer any questions that you have. And after that, ask for to approve advertisement of the 2022 proposed budget.
Thank you, Mr. Press. Any questions or comments from the board? I just have one comment. I just want to commend you, Mr. Chris, for chipping away at this budget and the diligence and making the township financially responsible. And for again, making another year where it's no increases in taxes. It's a really big deal. So thank you for your hard work.
You're welcome. I'll be glad to take all the credit, but rest assured,
It's a team effort.
no question about it. We've had all of our department directors that have signed on to those guidelines and those budget goals. So without them agreeing to all of that and working towards it, being on the same page, we wouldn't be where we're at today.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I have one comment. The 88 curbs and sidewalks, you talked about grant money. I believe we did receive last year or this year from our state representative and our state senator, $500 million in grant money. And is that part of this proposed budget?
Correct. That's part of the work that will be accomplished in 21 but also in 22.
Okay.
And if I can add as well, the last few years, for many years in East Norton, they didn't really, the administration, before we were all here, did not really go after grants aggressively. We've changed that. State and federal grant monies are there. Other townships and municipalities are getting them. And we felt in the last 5 years, East Norton needs to take their fair share of those grants that are available. So we've aggressively worked with our elected officials, and I have to say, State Representative Bradford and State Senator Capoletti have really brought home the bacon to East Norton, and it has allowed us to do so many of these changes to infrastructure, to parks and rec, all those different things. And we hope that to continue. We have several grants out there now, significant grants we're waiting on. We're hopeful. So there's a lot of good things coming our way, and we're going to continue to push in that direction and really, really transform. Again, we all know the goal is to make this township a place where families want to stay and grow their families, and from where other people want to come and raise their families, because it's a vibrant community that is all about and has the amenities and the infrastructure to make it a great place to live. So that's our goal.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, I'd like to make a motion to to approve or authorize the advertisement of the preliminary budget and schedule a budget presentation for November 16th and December 14th. Do I have a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Okay, second by Supervisor Stanton. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Monthly expenditures. We pass this over to Mr. Chris.
Thank you, Chairwoman DePiero. So presented to you tonight are the township expenditures for the month that you have in front of you. And as you recall, more specifically, these are expenditures from our last board meeting to our current board meeting. The expenditures total $1,188,211.19. Of that money, the accounts payable expenditures, those are the payments for utilities, supplies, services, they total $760,665.58. And payroll expenditures, salaries, wages, taxes, were $427,545.62. Township staff is asking for the board's approval of these expenditures, and I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions or comments from the board? Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve the monthly expenditures from September 28th through October 26th. Second on that motion?
I'll second.
Second by Supervisor Bananas. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Other business? Okay, manager's update.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We just had a trunk or treat this past Saturday, a great event. Something we've done for the last few years, and it was well attended, and I just wanted to thank our Parks and Rec staff and the rest of our staff that was an integral part of planning it and pulling it off. Also, let's tell everyone and the public to stay tuned for our tree lighting ceremony that's coming up. That is holiday season. It's going to be bigger and better than ever, and we really look forward to having a real hometown feel and a real celebration. So stay tuned for that. Lastly, because I don't want to take up too much time, I want to give an update on Pico. As you know, with the storms this year and the storms every year, it seems to be getting worse and worse and more destructive. We had a large call from residents, and quite frankly from you all who are residents here, with power outages, and they seem to be coming more frequently, and for some, the restoration process seems to be extenuated. We heard that call, and as staff from our residents and the board, we shared that in depth, those concerns with Pico and the representatives. They did sort of a comprehensive study with their engineers, and over the course of maybe a month and a half, we had a call with them recently where they gave some of the results of their study and their investigation. Suzanne Ryan, who is the representative from Montgomery County, and several of their engineers were on the call. Gave us a real, and some of the supervisors that were able to make the call, gave us a roadmap, I'd say, to how they plan to deal with this. And I think they made it clear that it's not just East Norton, these weather events are affecting everywhere. So almost every place is having similar issues. There's several things that their investigation recommended. First was just, they have a certain schedule where they trim back from lines. They have shortened that. I know that doesn't sound like a big effort, but it truly is. Many of our homes, if you go off of North Wales Road, many of the homes back there were really brought down and their powers were out because of the lines in the back where trees were taking them down. And they're difficult, some really mature trees, and difficult to restore quickly. So that is going to be a much different effort going forward. Also, they have substations that they were dealing with that were getting flooded out. They have a plan to readjust, reorganize, and redevelop these substations to accommodate a better service and really just to eliminate some of the off and on power surges that occur. So that was a part of it. And they also have two major projects. They have a major utility line project on North Wales Road, basically the length of North Wales Road, that will truly affect one of our hardest hit areas on both sides of North Wales Road, Keenwood and then back with Denise and that whole area now. They really get hit hard, and this will be a project in '22 that will help that along. There's several other smaller projects that are going on, so they had a very in-depth presentation. But the reality is, at the end of the day, they know they have to make these continual changes. The weather continues to make it a challenge. Of course, it's harder in more mature communities. If you're in a neighborhood with all brand new homes and the lines are underground, it's just common sense. They lose power less than older, more mature neighborhoods that have large trees near power lines. So that's something they spoke to us in depth about. It's something they're committed to. We appreciated Ms. Ryan and the engineers, their input and their feedback. Again, they don't make any promises, but they have assured us, and they basically assured every municipality in Montgomery County that they are doing everything they can to address these issues and really address them in a whole climate atmosphere, knowing that they're not going away. As kid Jim Sullivan for many years, we would have 100-year storms. It's a term of art in the engineering world, the climate world. Well, we have 100-year storms, we have 3 a year, or 2 a year anymore. So the whole 100-year storm is sort of antiquated and not really legitimate at this point. So we're going to stay in constant contact with Pico. They will be updating us as these projects go, and everyone will see them. We will put information out on social media, and we truly hope that there is some success here, and that these outages are lesser and fewer, and the restoration periods become shorter. And that's really where we're at now, so that's all I have.
Thank you, Scott. Any questions or comments from the board? Okay. Citizens to be heard. Yes, sir.
Thank you. I'm Ken Briskovich, I reside at 2937 Untitled Lane within the township. Referring back to the budget presentation this evening, I have a question. What's the township's plan relative to the long-term grant money that was earmarked for improvement, modernization to our traffic signaling devices and controls?
We are looking at other grants now for that particular project. The initial cost estimates that came in were more than double of the original estimates.
Were we talking like 900 grand 7 years ago?
We are talking, I don't know the exact numbers from the beginning, but it was literally maybe 60% higher, 70% higher than our initial estimate. So it's something that we're working hard. We do, I will say this, our township engineer Kelly Goff down there, one of her superpowers has been applying for grants and getting us grants. And she's aware, and Jim Sullivan in addition, know that second part of it is, if you saw, we had the one traffic light project done, but this back one really closes the loop on those traffic issues. So we don't have the answers now, but we're hoping that in the coming months we'll have some more information and hopefully get started on that project.
So what was done versus what was looking forward?
James?
What we did was video detection, we turned into radar detection at about 8 intersections. Some on Germantown Llc, some elsewhere in town. The adaptive signal plan was for 17 intersections along Germantown Llc to interconnect every city from township line to township line. As Mr. Hart suggested, the original cost estimate and the grant we received for that was extremely, let's call it low for what we got for bids. So we returned that grant. It was Penn Lake called the Green Light Go grant, and there's, that funding source is now opened up again. So we'll be applying for grants for that project again. Originally, there was I think a 50% match. Now it's down to 15%, which is much better for the township, obviously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the citizens? Okay. That being said, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting. So a second?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, seconded by Supervisor McKenna. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.